Did you read the last story? This issue is even more exciting. Welcome to Subscribe. Chapter 11, The Bloody Pact in the Slums, the Stronghold of the Brujah faction. In the shadow of Notre Dame de Paris, Adrian placed his palm on the damp brick wall. Dark patterns lit up at his fingertips. 3 roses rotated counterclockwise, revealing a hidden iron gate. Isabella caught a whiff of rust mixed with the scent of lavender, the smell of her mother's old scarf. After the sudden attack by pursuers in Chapter 10, this smell became astonishingly distinct. Lower your head. Don't look them in the eye, Adrian said as he tore off his windbreaker to wrap her blood-stained cuffs. From behind the door came the sound of chains dragging across the floor. In the damp cellar, over 20 figures in the shadows looked up. The bloody markings on their necks were the same as those of the opera singer, yet they meekly nodded to Adrian until they saw the birthmark on Isabella's right shoulder. Then, their breathing suddenly synchronized. What flickered on the stone walls were not torches, but glowing blood, crystals embedded in the walls. The blood of the infected had been solidified into amber, tracing out the ancient words of human blood symbiosis in the darkness. Isabella saw a blood race member offering their wrist to a human's mouth. Silver, hued blood dripped into the parched lips, and upon contact, the bloody pattern on the human's arm contracted into the shape of a rose. The Draculas rule with blood, the Ventrus kill with silverware. We, the Brujah, an old man emerged from the shadows. A half-cross necklace hung around his neck, and at the broken part, a rose pattern identical to Isabella's birthmark was revealed. We coexist through pacts. He raised his hand, and a bloody projection appeared on the wall, showing the blood vessels of blood race members and humans intertwining within the virus's double helix. Your blood is the seal of the pact. As Adrian handed the blood-stained silver dagger to the old man, Isabella noticed his salute gesture. 3 fingers bingled, swiping across his heart, exactly the same as the gesture of the Holy Maiden on the underground palace relief in Chapter 3. The old man unfolded the parchment, and in the light of the blood crystals, the gilded secret order of the Ventru Council became visible. All half-breed descendants are virus vessels. Kill on sight with a sketch of her father's execution scene attached. At the edge of the paper, beside the portrait of her father being hanged, was marked LW1897, the number on the hunter leader's badge from Chapter 10. Isabella felt a stinging pain in her fingertips. She suddenly clearly saw the cross on the old man's chest. It was the style her mother often wore. Engraved on the inner side of the pendant were the letters MV, the initials of her mother's surname. Your mother once came to me with this half-cross, the old man said as he took off the necklace. The rose pattern at the broken part coincided with Isabella's birthmark. She was a human spy the Brujahs had placed within the Ventru. In the winter of 1890, she asked me to give your father's ring, ... Before he could finish, a dying groan came from the corner. A young girl was curled up on an iron rack. The bloody markings on her neck were creeping towards her pupils. Isabella instinctively took her hand. Suddenly, a bloody seam burst onto her retina. Behind the iron grill of the drainage system, a Dracula blood race member inserted a test tube into the girl's arm. The moment the dark red liquid was injected, the murmur of the first-generation prince echoed in her mind. Become my eyes. The girl's memories came flooding back. On a rainy night 3 months ago, she had found a glowing coin in the sewer. The double helix pattern on the edge of the coin had pierced her fingertip, and the bloody liquid had seeped into the ground through the brick cracks. Isabella saw her own reflection in the sewage, and the girl's pupils had then crystallized. It's the Dracula's blood tax experiment, Adrian said, placing his hand on her trembling shoulder, his voice so low that only they could hear. They're cultivating virus receptors in type B blood people, just like what they did to Charlotte back then. ... double quotes. He suddenly fell silent, his eyes fixed on the old man's cross. The old man lifted the straw mat in the corner, revealing bloody words on the stone wall. In the 1462 Holy War, the church sealed the prince with the blood of the Holy Maidens, but sold the first-generation blood to the Draculas. What we safeguard is not the seal, but the symbiotic pact betrayed by the church. He pointed at Isabella's birthmark. The rose mark on your mother is proof of the Holy Maiden's bloodline. Suddenly, the secret order emitted a blue light, Adrian quickly grabbed the parchment that was about to catch fire. New words emerged from the ashes. The blood of the vessel can activate the Arctic reliquary. It is advisable to ally with the DRACULAS ... The signature was the rose emblem of the Ventru Council, but it was stamped with the double helix ink of the Dracula family. Isabella took a half step back and bumped into the stone wall with embedded blood crystals. Virus energy surged into her nerves through the birthmark. She saw that silver-colored blood flowed through the blood vessels of all the symbiotes. It was a silver powder potion injected by the Brujahs, which could temporarily suppress the virus, but form tiny ice cores in their hearts. "Adrian," she said, staring at the Ventru brand on his chest, "you've long known that my mother was from the Brujahs, and that the LW on the Council's secret order when my father was executed was the abbreviation for Leonardo Dracula." In the girl's memory when her father was executed, the handle of Adrian's silver dagger had indeed been engraved with the same letters. Suddenly, the old man knelt down. The cross necklace cast a complete rose-shaped shadow on the stone bricks. "In 1890, your father implanted a fragment of the reliquary into his heart and begged me to protect your mother. She had just conceived you, and the virus in her blood was reshaping the placenta." He pulled open his collar, revealing a rose-shaped birthmark on his chest, exactly the same as Isabella's. "We, the Brujahs, are the true descendants of the Holy Maidens." Suddenly, Adrian's silver dagger emitted a humming sound. The rose pattern on the handle resonated with the old man's birthmark. Isabella then noticed that the bloody markings of all the symbiotes were converging towards her, forming a visible bloody network. Each node was a Type B blood person marked by the Draculas. "This is your mother's last letter," the old man said, handing her a letter wrapped in oil paper with a half-rose pattern stamped on the seal. When she was injected with the first-generation blood in the Ventru laboratory, she deliberately let the virus erode her ovaries. "Your birthmark is a seal woven with her genes." On the edge of the letter, her mother's handwriting was soaked in blood. "If Adrian brings you to the Brujahs, tell him that the coordinates of the Arctic ice layer are hidden in the 7th glass of the Notre Dame rose window. That's where the Holy Maiden fell in 1462. Isabella looked up and saw that the old man's pupils glimmered faintly in the darkness. The same fluorescence as that of the rat swarm in the sewer when they were stationary in Chapter 6. Suddenly, the girl started convulsing. The bloody markings spread across her entire face. Isabella instinctively placed her palm on the girl's forehead. Virus energy gushed out through the birthmark, projecting a three-dimensional map of the Paris sewer system onto her retina. The locations of all the infected became pulsating red dots, and the brightest core was the sarcophagus in the underground palace of Notre Dame. "She's locating all the virus receptors," Adrian exclaimed as he grabbed her cold wrist and noticed that semi-transparent scales had grown on her fingertips. "The Draculas have implanted gene beacons in every Type B blood person. Your blood can activate them, just like the Holy Maiden activated the mural back then." The old man lifted the iron grate at the deepest part of the cellar, revealing a waterway leading to the same river. On the winter solstice of 1897, the ice layer crack at the end of the polar night can only last for 3 hours. He pointed at the reflection on the water's surface, where the spire of Notre Dame and the North Star formed a straight line. "Your father's execution bought you 10 years. Now it's time to fulfill the Holy Maiden's mission." Isabella looked down. Her mother's cross necklace had somehow slipped into her palm. The rose pattern at the broken part suddenly emitted a blue light, illuminating a hidden compartment in the stone wall. Inside were 7 fragments of the reliquary. One of them was engraved with the Ventru family emblem, and the remaining blood on the inner side resonated with her birthmark. "The Dracula's airship has arrived at Paris North Station," Adrian said as he unfolded the blood. Stained secret order to reveal the North Star chart on the back. "They want to extract your blood before the embrace to activate the first-generation heart that sank into the Arctic in 1462. He paused for a moment, his voice trembling. "Before Charlotte died, she injected her purified blood into the silver dagger. That's the only thing that can stop the prince's consciousness." Suddenly, the cellar shook, and a low growl of mechanical hounds came from above. The old man stuffed the cross necklace back into Isabella's hand. The rose pattern at the broken part fit perfectly into the gap of her birthmark. Back then, the Holy Maiden sealed the prince with 7 drops of blood. Your blood is the eighth. It can either make the virus immortal or ensure the survival of humanity. The bloody markings on the stone wall formed the word Arctic. Isabella suddenly saw clearly the memories of all the symbiotes. They had all had their blood drawn by the Draculas, yet had retained their humanity due to contact with her blood. Before losing consciousness, the girl grabbed her cuff and used her blood-stained finger to draw the same 1918 engraving on the ground as in the sewer in Chapter 6. "They're coming," Adrian said, his silver dagger slicing through the air, creating a blue glow. He stuffed the fragments of the reliquary into Isabella's pocket. "Remember, when the silver moon coincides with the rose, your blood is both the key and the lock." Suddenly, the rose-shaped hidden pattern on the iron gate exploded, and 17 silver crossbow bolts came hurtling through the air. Isabella instinctively shielded the girl behind her, only to see the crossbow bolts melt the moment they came into contact with her blood. The metal solution formed the word vessel on the ground, exactly the same as the dynamic fragments of the underground palace mural in Chapter 7. Suddenly, the old man stepped in front of her. The cross around his neck emitted a bright light. "From today on, the blood of the Brujahs is your shield." His blood solidified in mid-air into a rose-shaped barrier, with each petal made up of the bloody markings of the symbiotes. "Go to the Arctic. There lies what can end the curse." The moment the crossbow bolt pierced the old man's heart, Isabella heard the deafening sound of the ice layer cracking. She caught the falling cross and found that the rose pattern at the broken part fit her birthmark precisely. The old man's smile before his death was exactly the same as the smile in her father's photo in the medicine cabinet in Chapter 2. This issue ends here. The next issue will be even more exciting. Subscribe as soon as possible.